Just when you think that Vision is dead for good, Disney finds a way to bring him back. What's up, y'all? Naturegirl 30 here, and this is my review of Wandavision. Man, it was difficult to actually do a review for all of the episodes because this entire series really played with your head. I mean, played with your head a lot. And I found it kind of interesting because well, WandaVision, I guess the interesting part of WandaVision was definitely the decades of sitcoms that we actually watched. The 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 2000s, and the 2010s. 6. I'm just now getting it. The fact that everybody was inside of a hexagon, which has 6 sides, you went through 6 decades, which I honestly think is clever, and I just now thought about all that. But to be honest with you, what made WandaVision different from everything that I've seen in the MCU was the fact that it kind of delved into the psyche of Wanda, what she was going through. And even though her emotions came out of her magic, this was a way that she was dealing with grief, especially after losing her brother, her family, her home, and losing her lover Vision. And actually being able to live through all of those decades should have helped her grief. The reason why I kind of clung so closely to it is because it was something different from all of the Marvel tropes that I have seen so far. Every single time you see Marvel, you have the hero, you have the villain that is dastardly for reasons. They had to destroy the world or want to destroy the world for reasons. And then you have the hero stop them after a big battle, and then everything goes well. The thing is, we honestly had more of a human element when it came to WandaVision, which made me love it even more. And yes, there was a bit of horror in there. The one thing I didn't think that Disney would actually do is go the horror route, which I have heard that Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is going to be the first horror film in the MCU, which makes it more interesting. But also it makes me nervous because this is Disney, and Disney will only allow a little bit of wiggle room, but then yank it back. Can we say Andy Mack? But anyway, I digress. The fact is that I loved every part of WandaVision from episode 1 to episode 8, especially episode 8 when we dived a little bit more into what was going on with Wanda. There were a lot of sad moments here. The fact that she lost Vision, especially the fact that her and Vision met. When we saw her and Vision meet, as well as the fact that we saw him dismantle and she wanted to bury him. The fact that she wanted to bury him and give him a decent funeral, even though he's a synthezoid, broke my heart. I did everything I could not to cry. It was hard. It was extremely hard. It tugged at your heartstrings. There were moments that it really did just tug at your heartstrings. But the biggest disappointments to me, and there were a few, the biggest disappointments to me is that it went back to being a Marvel show, and I wish it didn't. The fact that you had S.W.O.R.D. involved in it way too much. The fact that you had the introduction to Monica Rambo, which in my opinion should have waited at least until Captain Marvel or hinted in another series briefly. It just shouldn't have been there. The fact that you had the guy that was ahead of S.W.O.R.D. being the dastardly villain that wants to take out all superheroes was a run-of-the-mill Marvel trope that I wish would just stop. Jimmy Woo, yeah, I love Jimmy Woo. He was a great character. He's a very interesting character, and I hope we see more of him. And Darcy, I didn't really like Darcy when I saw her in the first Thor movie, but now she's actually more likable. And she's more relatable, and you would honestly feel like she could be a genius. Like, I'm just saying, Darcy wasn't the most likable character in Thor for me, but I started to like her as time went on because not only was she known for being in sitcoms, and I mean Kat Dennings was known for being in sitcoms, it overall worked with her because of her work that everyone knows of in Two Broke Girls. So it just worked. But the problem that I had was the fact that it just shot back to being in a Marvel mode when you had the introduction of this huge government entity that's secret from the world, that is studying and examining more weapons being used. I've seen this trope far too often for every government entity there is, and I'm tired of that. And I know that that's a Marvel trope that's been around the comics for years, but I really wish that would change. The one thing I'm hoping is that when it came to Sword, I wanted Sword to be out in space, actually be like Star Trek, trying to go into different dimensions, explore new worlds, stuff like that, not be trying to develop weapons to protect themselves. We've seen this before. But when it came to Wandavision, it should have delved into how to deal with grief and what grief can do to you if you hang on to it. That's the resolve that I wanted Wanda to have towards the end of the series, but it doesn't look like she ever had that. It looks like she's still grieving. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to say it was a terrible series. The only thing that really did piss me off the most was the fact that you had Marvel that was throwing out all these hints, all these, not so much Easter eggs. Easter eggs is kind of like references, old references that bring up the nostalgia part in you. But these were like legit clues of the series, of especially the House of M. There was so many clues being thrown at you if you are a comic book fan, especially a Marvel fan, that made you wonder if they were going to go in this direction. The biggest one, the biggest troll, in my humble opinion, was the fact that they actually had Evan Peters, who played Peter Maximoff in the Fox version of the X-Men, who he actually played Quicksilver in that film. They had him cast as a fake Pietro, only for him to be an actor with the worst name I ever heard, and I am not repeating it. It was the biggest troll and the biggest disappointment I have ever seen in my life. They made such a big deal about this guy being on there, only for it to mean nothing. They did the exact same thing in Iron Man 3 with the Mandarin, and it pissed off a lot of fans, and they still didn't learn their lesson from that. The same thing with the engineer. They made a big deal about the engineer, only for the engineer to be nobody. It was, in my opinion, insulting to the fans, because you've been around long enough to know how your fan base works, and you're going to outright troll them? I mean, they're giving you money to make these movies. Don't you think that you need to give them something instead of throwing out breadcrumbs that lead to nowhere? You're thinking it's going to lead over here to the right or to the left, but it leads into a brick wall. Really? It was kind of insulting. I'm not going to lie. The first time I saw this, I was straight up angry. And I was like, really? Y'all going to do that? It's kind of dirty. It really is dirty. But at the end of the day, leading on up to the finale, before I get into the finale, let's talk about Agatha Harkness. Agatha Harkness is probably one of my I guess because I'm a fan of Catherine Hahn. Catherine Hahn actually brought out a lot of character in Agatha Harkness, especially the fact that Agatha is supposed to be really old. She's supposed to be 10,000 years old, which would make no sense, especially the fact that she was around during the Salem witch trials, but I digress. The thing is that Agatha had more character in this series than for any villain that I've ever seen. She had a lot of character. But the one thing I'm going to say about Agatha is Agatha was kind of put on the back end. Like, Agatha should have been a main part of the entire series. It should have been her all along, but it was a red herring. It wasn't. They actually did play with your head to make you think who the villain really was. Even though everybody, when they first saw the first 3 episodes, believed that it was Wanda. Because, of course, Wanda created all this world. It was in red. And the one thing I've seen in reviews, it is true, the magic was color-coded. You saw Agnes's magic that was purple, and then you saw Wanda's magic, which was red. Now, everything was pretty much created in a flood of red. So it's a given that Wanda actually created this world. But did she do it on purpose? That was the biggest question. When it came to Agatha, everything had a purpose. The reason why that she found her way into the Hex somehow through reasons, because the reason why I say that is because everybody that tried to get into the Hex got bounced out. Like, it was a difficult task to get into that thing. At first, when it was no barrier or anything, it was just invisible, you were able to get sucked in. Or if you were already in there, you get sucked in. How did Agatha find her way into the Hex is beyond me. Seeing how she was baffled how all these spells would kind of combine into one massive giant spell, how was she able to even get in there in the first place or infiltrate Wanda's world? That was a question that will never be answered. But I digress on that as well. They made so many hints to Senor Scratchy. They made so many hints to Ralph, my husband Ralph. That absolutely meant nothing. But I digress on that. And I know I said it about several times. But I wish I knew a lot more about Agnes. I wish it was her all along. I wish she was the villain. But I wanted her to be the anti-hero that I've heard of her being in the comics. I've never read a Scarlet Witch comic book. I'm more interested in reading it now, and I just might. But Agatha Harkness was the teacher of Wanda in the comic books, and she taught her how to use her magic. Now, when it comes to Agatha, why didn't that happen here? It would make more sense for her to create this world for her to be able to drain the power away from her. I was always wondering why not Agatha be a huge part of this entire series, besides it being about Wanda. Wanda should have been the one that was manipulated, but in a way, she was the villain as well, which I think was a very interesting twist. Wanda was a villain without knowing that she was a villain. Because of all that loss that she had, her powers was pretty much brought out by her emotions. We saw what happened in episode 8. She had a flood of red come out of her, and that's how she was able to create this entire world without knowing she did it. She just knew how she felt, and it just came out. But then we found out a little bit more about Wanda, found out the fact that she happens to be the Scarlet Witch, as well as being forged, not born. And then we found out that the book that actually was in Agnes's basement was the Darkhold. Now, there's not a lot that I know about the Darkhold, but I found out that the elder god Cthulhu was the one that actually created it. So in my humble opinion, and this is just a theory that I know is going to be totally wrong, but that's the reason why I am not going to put too much emphasis in it, because Marvel has a tendency to swerve you or to troll you, so theories do not matter anymore. And they want to make sure you don't even have a theory, because they're tired of hearing them. But regardless of that, my personal theory is that we're not going to have a physical appearance of Cthulhu. Cthulhu is probably going to be a gaseous entity that is going to somehow infiltrate the Scarlet Witch and possess her. And I think that Wanda is going to be the big bad villain of the MCU for maybe the next 2 phases. That's my overall theory on that. But when it comes to WandaVision as a whole, Vision and Wanda, I shipped them hard. I shipped them so hard. It broke my heart what happened to them. I shipped them hard in Infinity War. I shipped them hard in WandaVision. But I knew it was going to come to an end. And this was a part of the human element that I really wanted to see come out of Wanda. The fact that when she became the Scarlet Witch, I wanted her to accept the fact that Vision was gone, as well as her kids not being real, and dealing with her grief, accepting it and move on, but learn more about herself and her powers. I would have rather have that. Have that be about accepting the fact that she has lost so much, but hasn't lost everything. And that's the one thing I believe that Marvel missed out on. When it came to the series finale, it just felt like it didn't feel rewarding. It just felt like it fell flat to me, because it just went back into being a big old Marvel battle with spells and stuff and fights in the air. And I'm just like, I didn't want this CGI battle to happen here. I really wanted this to be more psychological, because that's how it should have been. Even though Wanda was going to eventually become the Scarlet Witch, I would have been fine if it actually happened in a Doctor Strange film than happened here. I wish there was hints of it happening here, instead of it actually coming into fruition here. But unfortunately, I don't feel like that Wanda had the resolve that I think it should have happened. So much has happened to her. She has lost so much from her family, from her brother, from everything, even Vision. She's lost so much, and I wish that she had some resolve. But I don't think that she got that in this film as well as in the finale. It just didn't feel satisfying. But to be honest with you, another waste of time besides the fake Pietro that led to nowhere was Monica Rambeau. Come at me. I'm gonna be honest. Monica Rambeau had no significance in this film at all. She didn't. I mean, the fact that she became Spectrum, and I don't care what anybody says. They can call her Photon all you want. She's Spectrum. She can see the electromagnetic spectrum. It makes sense. But I digress. The fact is, when you actually had Monica Rambeau in this film, it didn't make any sense to have her there because she really had no purpose. She had no rhyme or no reason to be in WandaVision. It didn't make any sense, at least not to me. And for her developing her powers here, the only way that this could work is that everybody within the Hex mutated like she did. If it was just her, it will not work. But everybody within the Hex, including the Sword agents that got caught up when the Hex expanded, if they are mutated too, then that also brings another theory that everybody's been talking about. The fact that Wanda will be the one to create or at least awaken the mutant race. I'm just saying. That's another thing I'm just throwing out there. But the fact that Monica Rambeau didn't have much of a significance here is 100% true. She really didn't. Like, no matter what you try to think about it, no matter how much you try to phrase it, she should not have been in WandaVision. It should have been way later. Maybe when she should have been introduced in Captain Marvel 2, but not here. And I know that WandaVision is going to be a transition for multiple series. She's going to be a transition to the Spider-Man movie, to the Doctor Strange movie, to Captain Marvel 2, possibly Loki, and possibly Thor Love and Thunder. She's going to have maybe 5 or 6 movies branching off of that, because she's going to be the one to either destroy the multiverse, which I wouldn't be surprised if she does, or change it as a whole. And even if they bring it back, it won't be the same. But the fact that we saw 2 post-credit scenes. One that was a mid-credit scene, of course, with Captain I'm gonna call her Captain Marvel. Let's be real. When it comes to Monica Rambeau, she is going to take the place of Brie Larson because no one likes her. Hence why they had it in the middle, because nobody cared about Captain Marvel. Let's be real. No one cared. But when it came to Monica Rambeau, she's going to go into space to meet a friend of her mother's, which I'm not really sure how, because Nick Fury vanished while Monica Rambeau was still on Earth. How are they friends is beyond me. But she's going to be up in space with them. Fine. And maybe she's going to tussle with Captain Marvel because she hates her for reasons that was never even explained in the series. But anyway, the biggest thing for me is actually the post-credit scene when we saw Wanda living in the mountains. And I think that, I forgot the name of the mountains, but it's something that was important too. That was actually kind of a reference to the comics. Now, she was living in the mountains. We end up seeing her in her physical form, drinking tea in a nice little cabin in I guess in like right at the edge of a mountain. And then we ended up seeing her astral form of the Scarlet Witch looking through the Darkhold. Now, I've seen a lot of people in reviews are saying that, oh my gosh, she mastered astral projection, because they actually said in the Darkhold, as what actually Agatha said this, that her power actually does trump the Sorcerer Supreme. So that was, of course, a little reference there to Doctor Strange. But to be honest with you, when it comes to the Scarlet Witch, I don't think that she actually mastered, I think she mastered witchcraft more than her mastering magic. The fact is, she was able to catch on when it came to the runes. And that's the one thing that actually caught my eye. She didn't know anything about magic. And the one thing that Agatha was right about, she said that it's not the fact that you lack power, it's just you lack knowledge. She's able to catch on so quickly. And from what I've seen in reviews, they said on the outside of her house, it looked like that the little designs on her shutters looked like the runes that was actually in the sky. She probably had mastered witchcraft to know what runes to use, because the one thing about astral projection, and this actually happened in the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, they use astral projection to be from one place to another, but they actually transfer their soul from one place to another, but their physical body was not active. Their physical body was stone dead because their soul was someplace else. So in the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, when they astral project, somehow I guess these little I don't know, these little demons or something that was in the shape of crows will catch on that your soul is out, and if you're out for too long, you'll be gone. With Doctor Strange, it showed that when his soul was popped out, his body was not physically active. So somehow she was able to both blend, I guess maybe elfin magic and witchcraft. Maybe that's the case. I don't even know if it's elfin magic. I could be completely wrong. But the fact that she was able to master those runes, she mastered witchcraft and magic. Maybe they're two different things. Maybe they're the same thing. I don't know. But the fact that she was able to physically walk around and astral project the magic side of her to learn about the Darkhold, that's something that's totally different. She actually learned faster than the Sorcerer Supreme. So that's going to be interesting going into Doctor Strange. So can I say that that is a reference to Doctor Strange? No, that's a piss poor reference to Doctor Strange. Which leads me to another complaint. There were rarely any tie-ins and cameos that led you in a different direction. The cameos were all of a farce. Like the ones that we thought that was a true cameo was definitely with Evan Peters, but that led nowhere. So anything that we believe will lead here will never lead here. We gotta wait on them to tell us where to go, which kind of pisses me off because they throw out all these clues, especially in these commercials, thinking that, oh, it means this and that, and it don't. So I'm just like, okay, that's why I take everything that Kevin Feige says with a major grain of salt until the actual show comes out. But anyway, enough ranting. When it comes to WandaVision is an excellent series. It's a really good series to watch. It's something that grabs you at the first go. When you actually see them going from literally 6 decades of television all the way through to the 2010s. And they kind of got Malcolm in the Middle wrong when it came to Wanda being in Sokovia with their parents. But I digress. The fact is that you honestly were able to see decades and decades of television as time went on, and they were 100% spot on with most of them. Especially you saw some inspirations from the Donna Reed show, Dick Van Dyke. You saw inspirations from possibly I Dream of Jeannie when it came to the entrances, like with the intros of these shows. The intros definitely reminded me a lot of Malcolm in the Middle. It was great. I honestly enjoyed that aspect of it, as well as when they stuck to that reality but then kind of broke the fourth wall when, I don't know, I guess when her magic kind of went awry. It was interesting. It really was intriguing. The finale was somewhat of a letdown though, but that doesn't mean the series is all bad. So if you really do want to watch WandaVision, my advice to you is to watch it all the way through. But go in it without any type of analysis or theories already in your head. But either or, y'all, watch this. Watch this series. This series is great. They're not going to make a season 2 because this is a transitional series. They are using WandaVision to transition into other movies as well as other series. So these transitional series are only going to have possibly one season. So don't expect any more. This is going to lead into another movie or another series on Disney Plus. So just enjoy WandaVision for what it is. And if you haven't seen it, watch it. If you have seen it, watch it again. It's still good. But other than that, y'all, that is how I feel about WandaVision. Have you seen the entire series? What do you think about it? Leave it in the comments below. I'm curious to know how you guys feel. And I know this is long, but this is WandaVision, and it was hard to wrap this sucker down below 10 minutes. So if I drag, my bad. But other than that, y'all, I am done here. I will see you guys later. Peace out.